Well, here we are this is episode number 8 of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast. My name is Jason Clark, and tonight we are talking about Venom. And I was trying to take some notes to get some ideas of what to talk about, and I quickly realized that there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Venom. Before we get into that, I just finished doing a lot of shows. I do stage shows with snakes, and I just finished a big show we did, the Georgia National Fair, where I go there and we have our reptile exhibit open for 11 days, and I have to do shows on stage every day. So basically, the first day is a shorter day, but the 10 days of it are pretty intense. We have to have our exhibit open for those days for 12 hours a day, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And during that time, I do 4 stage shows per day. 4 stage shows per day. I'm trying to pull up my YouTube channel so I can, because we record this live. If you're listening to this later on Apple Play, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening, we record this live on Thursday nights on my YouTube channel, SnakesAreUsTV. And if you join us live, you can join in on the live chat, which I'm trying to get open now. And look at there, an ad. Even I have to watch ads on my own channel, okay? So, all right, so here we go. So, Snakes Are Us TV podcast. This is episode number 8. Again, I'm Jason Clark, and I'm going to be talking tonight about Venom. And anyway, so I just finished that big show. 42 shows I did in 11 days. And that was tough. That was really tough because in the middle of that, we're still taking in animals and all kind of different stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But I always enjoy doing these shows. But when those really busy ones are over with, it's nice to have a break sometimes. So anyway, before we get into Venom, we'll say hello to the people who are already joining us. We've got Painted Rocks. Thank you for coming back. David Lunsford. What are you asking? He's asking, if a venomous snake loses a fang, does it regenerate or is it gone forever? I'm really glad you asked that question because I want to cover that during this podcast, and I forgot to put up my notes. So if you hadn't have asked it, I wouldn't have covered it. Candy's Critter says she is here, and from the Big Bend area of Texas. And not good reception. Well, hopefully, if you lose reception, Candy, you can come back and join us. The Bandit is here. Bandit, where are you from? Living with Cable, Chris Cable of Living with Cable's YouTube channel is here. Chris Taylor. Hey, Chris. So, okay, let me answer your question before we get into Venom, because that's a good question about fangs. So, David Lunsford asked, if a venomous snake loses a fang, does it regenerate or is it gone forever? Now, there's different types of fangs, and instead of getting really, one thing I try to do, like when it comes to my venomous snakes, I try to learn the scientific names of the venomous snakes I keep and learn all the technical jargon that comes with it. But I don't use that information a lot in my videos or in my live shows because I want to kind of get this information down to where I can pronounce it and you can understand it if you're not a scientist, okay? So there are some really big words when it comes to the types of fangs that exist. So let's talk about the typical fangs that a rattlesnake, a copperhead, or a cottonmouth would have. These are hollow fangs, and they're basically hinged. They basically fold up against the roof of the mouth, okay? And they can move these fangs independently, almost like fingers. They can move one or two. Basically, they open their mouth and they kind of stab with the fangs and they fold them back up, and they're covered by like a fleshy sheath to protect them in the mouth. And often what happens is a snake will bite prey and the fang may come off in the rat or whatever's biting and get stuck in there. And then if that happens, if the snake then swallows this rat that his fang is stuck in, he swallows his own fang. That actually is pretty common for that to happen. That's often how snakes lose their fangs. They get stuck in prey. And so the cool thing is if you have venomous snakes that you keep, this is really gross, but if you want snake fangs, guess where you go to find them? Yeah, you dissect the poop, okay? Preferably use gloves, okay? And be very careful, because what you don't want is to be dissecting this and get pricked by a fang that has, residual dried venom. Could that happen? I think it's rare, but I wouldn't take a chance on it. Yeah, you could get poked and get, some residual venom in your finger and still have a bad reaction from that. So, yeah, you can find fangs. So what happens when it loses a fang? Well, it does grow a new fang. And here's the cool thing. Sometimes when the snake grows a new fang, sometimes the old fang hasn't been lost. Sometimes the old fang's not ready to go. So now this copperhead, cottonmouth, or rattlesnake could have 3 fangs, or 4, or 5, or 6. And these fangs are capable of injecting venom. From what I understand, that they can still inject venom. So typically they do have 2 fangs, but they can have more than that. They also have teeth. So they have, several teeth in addition to fangs. When we talk about fangs, those are the hollow teeth that inject venom, okay? Now, we got some more people joining us here. The Bandit is from, Jones County. Okay, Elizabeth Weaver is from Barrow County. I know where Barrow County is, a little north of us. Lisa Easter is here. And now, so first of all, what exactly is venom? Okay, you hear all the time if somebody slips up and says, I got a poisonous snake in my yard. People will jump on this person pretty viciously. It's not poison; it's a venomous snake. And I try not to be that way. Is there a difference? Yeah, there's a difference depending on where you are. In other parts of the world, there's no word for venom, so we do use poison. So if you say poisonous snake, well, it's a venomous snake, but there's no really need to correct the person because we understand what you're talking about. So it's not really a need to jump on the people and say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not a poison snake, it's a venomous snake, even though there is a difference there. So what is the difference in poison and venom? Poisons, we think about, poison ivy. You touch poison. I can look at poison ivy and I hate poison ivy. I'm so allergic to it. But you touch poison ivy, the oils get on your skin, you can have a reaction. If you eat poison ivy, you'll have a reaction. If you get it in your eyes, ocularly is how they, getting things in your eyes. If you inhale, if you're burning poison ivy on a brush pile, you inhale the smoke, that can affect you. So that's how you be affected by poison. You drink a bottle of poison, okay? That's how poisons affect us. Now, venom is different. Venom, if you get venom, let's say you have a copperhead and you get some copperhead venom on your skin, what will that venom do to your skin? Really nothing, okay? If you drank copperhead venom, which I don't recommend, what will that do to you? Really nothing. Unless you have an open cut, an ulcer in your mouth or stomach, it somehow gets into your bloodstream. That's why you shouldn't drink venom, okay? But venom is not necessarily the same as poison. They're both toxins, but they're delivered differently and they act differently. They're made of different things, okay? So, are there poisonous snakes here in the southeastern U.S.? No. Are there poisonous snakes in the United States? No. Are there poisonous snakes in North or South America? I don't think so. Are there poisonous snakes anywhere in the world? Yes, there actually are poisonous snakes that exist. And there's one that I always hear about, and there's a few subspecies of it, can't even talk, and it's called the keelback. The keelback is in Asia, China, and basically what this snake does, first of all, this snake is venomous, okay? It has venom. But it also is poisonous. And what the snake does, it eats toads, among other things. But when it eats these toads that have toxins, that have poisons, there are glands on the back of the keelback snake's neck that store those poisons, okay? And so when a predator comes, the keelback who has poison stored in the back of his neck presents the back of his neck to the predator. If the predator bites the neck, he gets a mouthful of poison. And it may still kill the snake, but it helps teach that predator, don't be killing us snakes. Okay, leave my family alone even after I'm gone. And what I heard one time from a researcher was those keelback snakes that you catch in the wild that have the toxin, they will always present the back of their neck to you in such a way that if you're a predator will bite it. But what I heard was that those keelback snakes are kept in captivity and don't contain the toxins from the toad. They don't have those poisons in their body. They start losing that behavior and don't present those toxic glands on the back of their neck to predators when they're attacked. So I think that's kind of cool. So anyway, that's kind of what poison is. Venom is also a toxin, but when we think of venom, we think of something being mechanically almost injected into you by some type of apparatus. So spiders are not poisonous; they're venomous because they inject their toxin with fangs. They puncture your skin, and the venom goes in. Okay, and snakes have fangs. They puncture your skin with fangs and pump in venom. Wasps, that's hard to say. Bees. All those have stingers. They inject with venom. Scorpions. Something interesting, and this is kind of on topic but off topic a little bit. I was reading something that I wanted to share with you guys, and I have taught classes before on venoms, spider bites, ticks and chiggers and all these different things. And one thing I found interesting that I like to bring up in some of those classes that I do is, and I'm going to go to my notes here because I don't have all this memorized, but the brown recluse spider. And this is always so interesting to me because it kind of shows how much misinformation there is out there about venoms, spiders, snakes, every little kind of creepy crawly that people don't like. There's so much misinformation out there. And all the time there's people posting photos of, hey, I have two little scratches here that are this far apart. You think it's a snake bite because there's two punctures? It could be. Could be a million things, okay? Doesn't mean it's a snake bite. Doesn't mean it's not, but doesn't mean it is. So there's a researcher from University of Georgia, and they were doing research on the brown recluse spider. And this is just really interesting. I don't want to read this whole thing to you, but this is really cool. It's actually really funny when you think about this. So over the past 6 years, only 19 brown recluse spiders have been found in a study that was conducted for the spider in Georgia. So they're trying to study brown recluse spiders in Georgia. And these researchers only found 19 of them over a 6-year period. Now, some people are watching and say, oh, come to my house. I got brown recluse spiders everywhere. Okay. Anyway, so most of these spiders were in the northwest corner of the state of Georgia. Okay. And this study was, this information comes from Nancy Hinkle. She was an entomologist with UGA. Brown recluse spiders have only been collected a total of 58 times in Georgia. Now, and they've only occurred, I think, in 31. Georgia has 159 counties, a lot of counties in Georgia. Only 31 counties they've been found in. But hang on, let me get to the good part of this about the brown recluse. This is so funny to me. It goes on to describe how brown recluse spiders are identified, blah, blah, blah. All right, so here it is. It says, let's see, brown recluse spider bites are very rare in Georgia. A lot of people will disagree with this, mainly because they're being misidentified, okay? There is only one confirmed account of anyone being bitten by one in Georgia. One confirmed account of anyone being bitten by a brown recluse spider in Georgia. I've had 50 people in the last year tell me they've been bitten by brown recluse spiders, okay? However, there are 963 reports of bites filed in Georgia poison control centers within the last 5 years. So they're reporting being bitten, but only one that's actually confirmed that was actually a brown recluse bite. Hang on. It actually gets even more interesting than this. So this is basically overdiagnosis of a problem that's not really a problem, okay? Now, South Carolina. In South Carolina, physicians diagnosed, so doctors in hospitals or wherever had a patient come in with a wound that the patient is saying they have a spider bite. 738 bites were recorded in 1 year in South Carolina. However, only 44 brown recluse spiders have been found in the state's recorded history. So in the history of South Carolina, 44 brown recluse spiders have ever even been documented. Only 44. But in 1 year, 738 bites of the spider were recorded. Okay? Let's see. Florida has recorded brown recluse spiders at only 11 places in the state in the last 100 years. But there's a lot of reports of brown recluse spider bites in the state, but there just doesn't seem to be any spiders there to do it. Okay? But like I said, if you tell people this, some people have a wound and they're so convinced that a spider did it that it almost becomes, it's part of their story. They tell this story over and over and over about how they were bit by a black widow or a brown recluse, and that maybe some of them have, but I think a lot of them haven't. So hang on, let me go on down so they come in with a wound, and what it's found to be is what it is often is actually MRSA. MRSA, which is a type of a staph skin infection, and it's misidentified as a spider bite or a brown recluse bite. MRSA infections require a specific set of antibiotics, and those antibiotics don't help spider bites. So if you have MRSA and you're treating it as a spider bite, you're not actually helping the MRSA. Now, some of these wounds are said to be insect bites, diabetes, bed sores, Lyme disease, anthrax, necrotizing bacteria, and some of this stuff can be fatal if not treated fast, but instead of getting treated fast, they're treating it as if it's a brown recluse spider bite. Okay, here's the last thing about this, then we'll move on to venom. The last sentence of this article, it says, almost all brown recluse bites heal without medical intervention, is what this entomologist said. In spite of the stories, only 1% of brown recluse spider bites actually need medical attention. Does that surprise you? It surprised me because there's so much misinformation about spiders, snakes, venom, and all this stuff. Okay. All right. So we get into some more stuff here. I got some really cool stuff to show you. So let's see. We've got a bunch of questions about alligators. So I'm not going to get into a lot of that. What is the difference between albino versus leucistic? Those are completely different genes. You have albinism, which is amelanistic, which means albino. They can still have a pattern. They have pink eyes. They may not have a pattern. Leucistic has no pattern. They're all white with blue or black eyes. Then you have melanistic, which is all black. So it's just different genetic variations. This is a question someone's posting in the live chat as we're recording this podcast. All right, so let me get down here to some more stuff because, there's so much about venom, and I'm just barely scratching the surface here of this stuff. So let me read you this. Over 100,000 species of animals and insects on the earth are considered venomous. We have 100,000 venomous creatures. Okay? That's a lot of venom. Most of that stuff is harmless to us. At least a lot of it is. All right? Now, here's the thing. Each one of these species is capable of producing venoms that contain up to 100 different molecules. I know this is boring stuff, but hang on, I'm getting to a point here which is pretty cool. So each venom is not just one single toxin. It's actually like a cocktail of different toxins, okay, of different molecules that all do different things. Now, here's the cool part. Studies have found that venoms are composed of 100 to up to 500 active compounds that are capable of doing things good or bad in the human body. All right. So with the number of venomous animals that we have and the number of compounds found in each venom, here's what that translates to. That means that there are between 10 to 50 million natural compounds that can be used for drug discovery. Let me say it one more time. There are between 10 to 50 million compounds, natural compounds that can be used for new drugs to heal people, okay? Now, less than 0.01% of those have even been identified. And of the 0.01% we've identified, there's so many cool things that's being done in science with the venoms we know about. But we only know about 0.01% of them. So let's go into this a little bit more. Okay, so types of venom, okay? There's different types of venom, and I'm trying not to get technical here, and I can make this list a lot longer and a lot more detailed, but I'm trying not to do that. So let me try to simplify this as I can. So let me mention some types of venom, and this last one is going to surprise some of you. So one type is hemotoxic venom. This is like what we think about, like, copperheads, cottonmouths, rattlesnakes having hemotoxic venom, and this basically destroys blood cells and tissues, okay? It can also have effect like on your organs and things. Then there's neurotoxic venoms, and some rattlesnakes will also have neurotoxins, but we mainly think of coral snakes, mambas, cobras having really high neurotoxic venoms. And neurotoxins basically attack your nervous system. One thing that happens with that, your diaphragm can become paralyzed pretty quick. If that happens, you can't breathe and you suffocate. So you need to be close to a ventilator if you get bit by a cobra or a mamba or a coral snake, okay? Then there's the cytotoxins. Cytotoxins usually attack cells and usually do that at the site of the bite. Another one are myotoxins. Myotoxins damage like muscle, and I also like disrupt like blood clotting and things, okay? Then there's also, there's more. There's like proteolytic toxins that dismantle molecular structures and cause hemorrhaging. And you can go on. There's a lot of different things, and you get very technical with this. Actually, there's a couple of good books up here on my shelf. Venomous Reptiles and Their Toxins. It's way up here on that very top shelf, and it's by Brian Fry. If you want to follow Brian Fry on Facebook, I follow him. Puts a lot of really good stuff out about venom. That's one really good book. Another good book is over here behind me too. It is called Handbook of Venoms and Toxins of Reptiles. It's a textbook. It's very technical, but it can get in like the nitty-gritty stuff of venoms. All right, so this last one I want to mention is crotamine. Crotamine causes like skeletal muscle spasms, and in some studies where they're studying this with mice, it'll paralyze the back legs of mice. So rattlesnakes have that. What other reptiles have crotamine? Bearded dragons and green iguanas. Yeah, how many millions of bearded dragon owners do we have out there that some of them may or may not know that their bearded dragon is venomous? Now, it's such a small amount that it's not really dangerous to us. That's why you can still buy your kid a bearded dragon and an iguana. But there's also other animals that are considered venomous. Let me show you one. And I always say I try not to do a lot of visual stuff on this podcast because I know not everyone listening to this podcast can see what I'm doing. But, those of you who can see this on YouTube, I do want to show this to you. So I'm pulling out a snake right now. And depending on who you ask, will give you a different answer as to whether or not this snake is venomous or not. This is a Western hognose snake. That's our Western hognose. I love hognose snakes. These guys are so cool. Here in Georgia, we have the southern hognose snake and the eastern hognose snake. The southern hognose snake is a threatened species. Now, this is a western, and this species is often available in the pet trade, okay? And this particular hognose snake belongs to my youngest daughter, Lily, and she named it, Snappy, and she calls it Snap. Anyway, this is Snap, the hognose snake. And when you get technical about it, I guess you could consider this to be a venomous snake. Now, we don't list this, like, for instance, right here in our Venomous Snakes of Georgia brochure, we don't list hognose snakes as a venomous snake. They're listed as a non-venomous snake. The reason for that is because the venoms, the toxins they possess, are not medically significant to us. That does not mean that if they bite us, we don't have a reaction. You do have a reaction from it. Now, this snake won't typically just bite you and let go. If they bite you and they hold on and start kind of chewing and trying to get in those big back teeth into your skin, and their saliva gets in, it'll swell, it'll get red, it'll itch. You'll have a little bit of reaction. You won't lose your finger. It's not going to kill you. Don't let them hang on to you and bite you. That's the main thing. If they bite you, just pull your finger out of their mouth. Now, this snake does not have fangs as the traditional fangs we think of when we think of a venomous snake. They're not hollow fangs. They have enlarged rear teeth in the back of the mouth, and these teeth are not hollow. They have a groove that runs down the teeth. And then this snake also does not have venom glands. Instead, he has the Devorny's gland. Devorny's gland is basically like a strip of tissue, like in the upper lip area, that secretes a toxin that mixes with the snake's saliva, and that saliva then seeps right down, seeps right down into its prey, and primarily these snakes in the wild eat toads. So when he finds a toad, the toad puffs himself up to make himself as big as possible because he didn't want to be eaten. And in order to relax the toad, that's this nice way of saying paralyze the toad, he bites him as the toxins seep in. It kind of paralyzes the toad, and he can easily down his supper. So that is our hognose snake. And yes, so you could consider this a venomous snake, but it's not medically significant. You could also, if you're looking at the same thing, you could also consider garter snakes the same way, you know. Now, we were talking earlier about keelback snakes and how keelback snakes in Asia eat poisonous toads and store their venom, store their poison in glands on the back of the keelback's neck. Well, there's garter snakes out west that are known to eat, what do they eat? I think they eat newts that have some types of toxins, and those garter snakes are known to store some of those toxins in their liver, I think it is. I think they store them in the liver somewhere. Anyway, so if you find a garter snake out west, you want to eat it, don't eat its liver because it may be toxic. Anyway, you can eat the rest of it, though, probably. Anyway, so that is our western hognose snake. And luckily, he does not bite. These guys hardly ever bite. They can bite you, but it's very, very rare. Let me get him and put him back in his little pillowcase here. Now, we talk about poisons. Poison is relative to, guess what you're talking about and the amount that you ingest. For instance, we talk about if you have a bottle of poison, whatever kind of poison you can imagine, and you drink that poison, well, you can die. But that poison is very concentrated and it's going to kill you because it's poison. But could other just things laying around our house be poison? What about this remote? Could this remote be considered poison? Well, it depends on how much of this remote I ate. If I took the batteries out, which we know are toxic, and I just ate the plastic of this, a little tiny piece of plastic, just chipped a little plastic piece off this remote, and I swallowed that little piece of plastic, would that kill me? Would that poison my body? Probably not. I'd probably, pass that right on out at some point, okay? But what if I got 1,000 remotes and chipped them all up in real fine powder or, chips, and I ate all that? Well, at some point, you're going to eat enough of this stuff to kill to really cause harm to you. And so poisons, if you're getting technical, a lot of things can be poison depending on the amount it's taken in. But some things are so powerful and so strong, it doesn't take much of it. So that's what we consider poisons. But it's kind of like the old thing of if you drop a chair off of a high-rise building and the chair breaks into a million pieces, at what point is it not a chair? If you take one leg off the chair, is it still a chair? How much of the chair can you take apart and it still be considered a chair? Where's the line there? How much of a substance do you have to eat or consume for it to be considered poison? Okay, so you can get into semantics there all day with that stuff. All right, so let's get on down here because I got some more stuff I want to cover with you. I think it's pretty cool. Something called the LD50. Now, this is a question we get all the time, especially from kids. What's the most dangerous snake in the world? What's the most venomous snake in the world? Well, it all depends exactly what you're talking about because, one snake may have extremely powerful venom, but maybe a snake that lives in the ocean that no one ever sees and no one ever comes in contact with and never bites anybody. So it's not really dangerous to us because we never encountered it. Then we look at the puff adder in Africa, which has extremely powerful venom. Its venom is not even in the top 10 of most powerful venoms, but I think that snake kills more people in Africa than any other snake. So which one's more deadly? The one that doesn't have as powerful venom as a sea snake does, or the one that kills more people? So it depends on what you're asking when you're asking which is the most dangerous snake. But if you're looking at just simple drop for drop, and if you take a drop of this snake's venom and a drop of this snake's venom, which one is the most venomous? Well, even that is not as easy as you think. Now, let me get into this. So LD50 is a scientific measurement that's used to measure the potency of venoms and a lot of things. And basically what this is they try to figure out how much of a substance is required to kill 50% of a group of mice or whatever animal they're using. Most of the time they'll use mice. So 50% of the mice, how much substance is required to kill half of that? Okay, and that's considered the LD50 or lethal dose is what LD is, lethal dose 50%. Okay, now here's how that differs because they can inject the venom into the mice. They can put it into a vein. Okay, they can inject it into a muscle. They can inject it into the abdomen. They can inject the venom into the skin. And depending on the species of snake, depends on the type of venom it has, will depend on which place is worse to get the venom injected into. Because some venoms are worse to be injected directly into the blood because that venom specifically acts more on blood than if you inject it into muscle or into skin or something. So even when we're comparing venom drop for drop, it's still hard to kind of figure out which one's worse because it depends on the venom and what it's capable of doing. And so if you go on the internet and you search LD50 list for most venomous snakes, you're going to find a bunch of different lists. And you're going to find a bunch of different ones that, well, this one's number one. No, this was number one. No, this was number one. Because there's different ways of testing the potency of venoms. So like one list that I found had the hook-nosed sea snake as the most venomous snake in the world. And then it had number 2, the most venomous snake in the world, the Russell's viper. And then number 3, the inland taipan. If you ask a lot of people, what's the world's most venomous snake? They'll say, oh, the inland taipan. Well, that's the world's most venomous land snake. But the LD50 of the inland taipan, it looks like it's the same as the Russell's viper. So if those two are the same, why is the Russell's viper number 2 and the inland taipan number 3 if they're the same? Well, here's why. because the Russell's viper's venom yield is much higher. What is venom yield? How much venom the snake puts out. So if you get bit by an inland taipan and a Russell's viper, and if the venom is drop for drop just as worse as the other one, the worst one to get bit by would be the Russell's viper because it injects a larger quantity of venom per bite. At least that's what this particular list is saying, okay? And so as you go down through this LD50 list, depending on which list you want to believe will determine which snake is the most venomous one in the world, okay? We'll get into some more stuff in just a minute. Let's go over to our comments here. We have a lot of people commenting and some questions and comments people are putting on here. So let's see here. We got Catherine Ryan joining us. Thank you for being here, Catherine. She says, wow, that's interesting. Austin Massey, welcome. Connor Taylor, thank you for being here. Lily says she saw us at the Perry Fair. Thank you for coming there, Lily. Let's see. There's a lot of comments on here. Let me try to read these. Let's see here. Catherine Ryan's talking about the brown recluse. And so Dave Lunsford, he's asking, as a venomous snake gets older, does its venom ever decrease in potency or does it keep the same potency its entire life? That's a really good question. I don't know. I kind of do, but I don't know for sure. But let me answer that. So his question is, as a venomous snake gets older, does its venom ever decrease in potency or does it keep the same potency its entire life? So I don't believe they keep the same potency their entire life. There's some studies that suggest that juvenile snakes, newborn snakes, their venom drop for drop may be more powerful, more potent than that of their parent who is an adult, okay? So some people think that it's worse to get bit by a baby rattlesnake than an adult rattlesnake, and which that's not true, okay? Even though a baby's venom could possibly be drop for drop a little more powerful, it doesn't matter because the adult injects so much more venom than the baby. But then people say, well, that's not true because the babies can't control their venom. Well, that's a myth. The juvenile snakes, the minute these snakes are born, they can very accurately control exactly how much venom they inject. We're taught the opposite. But yeah, they can control their venom. But let's just say for argument's sake that they can't. Let's just say that the baby snake don't know any better. He just gives you all his venom. He's young and dumb, don't know any better. He just gives it all to you. And let's make up a number. Let's say the mama snake gives you 10% of her venom. That 10% by volume is still more than the baby's got in his whole body. So I don't care if it's a copperhead, king cobra, black mamba, gaboon viper, whatever it is. As long as you're choosing among the same species, hope is the smallest one you can find. You know, the bigger the snake, the bigger the fangs. The bigger the fangs, the bigger the venom glands. The bigger the venom glands, the bigger the hospital bill is probably going to be, okay? So choose the smallest of the snakes. Even though drop for drop, it could possibly have more potent venom, but the quantity of it is so much worse in the bigger snake that it offsets. It doesn't matter. So as a snake gets older and it may be declining in health, it may not have access to food, even if it's a younger snake. If it's sick, I would very much so imagine that its venom may possibly not be as potent because the snake's just not as healthy. Is that science? Nope, I just made that up. Okay, but it seems like I read that somewhere. I don't know if I did. Go Google that. Go look it up and tell me if I'm right or wrong on that one. But that's what I think. Candy's Cry, I knew it would be a hog. Yeah, hognose snakes are awesome snakes. Doesn't a garter snake have some venom as well? You may have typed that before I answered it, but yes, garter snakes do also have toxins as well. Cottonmouth Kyle, one of my friends, Kyle, down in Waycross, Georgia, he sent me a picture of his finger. He had been bitten by a garter snake, and it kind of chewed on him, and he didn't take it off, let it chew on him, and his finger got kind of swollen and red and was itchy. He's like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to do that. I've been bit by garter snakes before, but this is the worst garter snake I've ever been bit by. So I mean, it's not going to kill you, most likely, unless you have an allergic reaction, which is extremely rare. But yeah, so Anyway, so let's get back to Venom on here. Now, some really cool things are happening with Venom. Like I told you earlier, there are between 10 to 50 million components in Venom. 10 to 50 million. And we've only recognized 0.01% of those that we know what they are and what they do. So there's so much more stuff out there that we don't know about, okay? So if you go and search on the internet, go to the search engine and type in, medications derived from Venom, and it will blow your mind on some of the stuff. And some of it's kind of hard to read because it's not just like, well, here, this snake right here provides this specific medication that treats this. You don't really find that. A lot of it is, scientific papers, and you have to really kind of read through there to find out what toxins they're talking about, which snakes you're talking about, and what medication this does. But I'll break down just a few of them for you as we kind of get ready to wrap it up here, not too much longer. The pygmy rattlesnake, for instance. Pygmy rattlesnakes live here in the southeastern U.S., and there's a medication that is derived from their venom called, there's a few of them. One's called Integralin. That's the brand name, I believe, Integralin. And from what I understand, it's basically a super aspirin that can kind of help stop heart attacks. And so that's from one of our venoms, which is amazing. Now, then we look at your rattlesnakes and your cobras. And I'm just going to mention a few. There's a whole lot more than this, but things that we're looking at treating with rattlesnake and cobra venom. And I don't mean just straight venom. We don't take venom from a snake and just inject it into somebody's body that has a disease and see it heal. This stuff has to be worked out in a lab. There's different components extracted from these venoms. And then sometimes we can synthesize those in the lab. Sometimes we can't. We have to actually continue to get venoms from that snake. It just depends on what they're working with. But rattlesnake and cobras are being looked at for a lot of things. One is Parkinson's disease. Another is Alzheimer's, leukemia, brain cancer, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And here's a really cool one. I think this was done in India. I believe this was maybe India, and a Russian scientist. They took a cobra's venom, and they took I don't even know what these things are. They're called quantum dots. What is a quantum dot? I have no idea. Go look it up. A quantum dot. And they took cobra venom and they basically mixed it with these quantum dots, and they made a hybrid compound, a hybrid not found in nature compound, okay? And then what they do is they basically inject this into your body. It flows through your body, and it finds the cancer growth, the cancer cells, and then something about this hybrid particle bonds to the outer edges of this cancer tumor or the individual cancer cells, the outer edge of it. And when you look at it with your naked eye, you don't see anything. However, when that happens and then you look at it under a UV light, it lights up like a Christmas tree. How is that helpful? Well, if we're targeting cancer tumors and we're going to be cutting this thing out, then they can go in and map with their digital instruments. They can map out exactly where this tumor is. And so when they're cutting it out, they're not missing any pieces of this. So these cobras are helping to save lives. It's absolutely amazing. Another one is the South American rattlesnake. The South American rattlesnake, which I've got a couple of those, there's something in that snake's venom that inhibits the life cycle of hepatitis C. I think it does something to hepatitis C, which is not good for hepatitis C, which is good for the people who have hepatitis C. Okay. So Catherine Ryan, what is she asking? So Nadia Brooke, hey Nadia, glad you're here. Nature Nut is here. But Catherine Ryan is asking, curious about venom spitting snakes, like a spitting cobra, I guess. Like, for example, a cobra, okay? If that venom gets in your eyes, on your skin, does it affect you, or does it have to be injected in to affect you? So Very good question. No. So when we talk about cobra venom, that is more of a neurotoxic venom. It's not a hemotoxic, so it's not necessarily affecting our tissues as much as like a rattlesnake would. But those venoms, the compounds in those are different in such that they are specifically designed to act upon your eyes. I don't know if I should tell the story because this story makes me look really stupid because it's such a stupid thing that I did. It is so stupid. I'm not going to tell you the story. No, I'll tell you the story. Okay, it is so dumb. I've owned some spinning cobras over the years, and this one time I had this black and white spitter, this Indo-Chinese spitting cobra. If you go look it up, it's a beautiful cobra. They're black and white speckledy snakes. They're really, really pretty. And when you looked at the glass of its enclosure, it was just stained with venom, where you'd walk by there and he would just spray venom at the glass, just wanting to hit you right in the eye with it. And if he hits you in your eye, it can cause permanent or temporary blindness. You want to wash that stuff out as quick as you can because it can really mess you up. So every time I should not tell this story. Every time I handled this snake, I would use, protective eyewear. I've got goggles I'll use. What I prefer using is a face shield. I put this little helmet thing on and a whole face shield comes down. So if it does spray, not only is it not getting in my eyes, it's not hitting my face anywhere, okay? So I have this protective face shield. This one day, I was in one of the buildings cleaning cages, and this Indo-Chinese, this black and white spitter, this cobra needed water, needed the cage to be attended to. And the thing about this cobra was every time I'd open the enclosure, he would just retreat to the back of the enclosure. Like he wouldn't stand his ground and just start spitting at me, because now the glass is not here. Now I'm going to, he wouldn't do that. He would just kind of go away. I would take a hook. I'd hook him and bring him out. He wouldn't have his hood up. He would just kind of be interested in getting off the hook and crawling away, So he never spit outside of his enclosure at me ever, not one single time ever. So this particular day, I don't know why, but the face shield that I used was in the next building. It was in the building next to where this snake was at. And I was very lazy and did not want to go over there and get the hood, the face shield. So I wasn't thinking, okay? I was like, you know what? He never spits at me when I get him out. All I have to do is just, maybe if I squint a little bit. I told you this is so stupid. It's so stupid. Maybe if I squint just a little bit, if he does spit, it won't get in my eyes. He's not going to spit anyway because I'll just get him out. I'm going to get him out real quick and just put him in this enclosure. I'm going to clean this cage real quick and put him right back in. And I did that, and when I go to get him out, and I'm doing like this, it's so just so dumb. The cobra comes off the hook, hits the floor, and takes off underneath the shelf where I'm keeping this cobra. And now I can't get down here and look underneath this dark shelf to hook him and pull him out because I can't squint and look in the dark. So I had to yell and get help as I'm standing here watching because the cobra can't go anywhere. He can't get out of the building. He's contained. He can't go anywhere. But I don't want to have to look around this building for him. I want to sit here and say, okay, he's right here, and I'm going to stand here so he doesn't come out and go somewhere else. So I had to stand there and wait until I got help in there to get me my face shield and put it on. So then once I did that, I just reached down, I hooked him. He never spit at me and put him back in the enclosure. And I never, ever, 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 ever in my life handled or dealt with in any way a spitting cobra until I had my face shield on my face. Again, I can tell you that was an extremely, extremely stupid thing to do, okay? And like I said, I've never been bitten by a venomous snake. I've had some close calls, and that wasn't even a close call. Like, he didn't try to do anything to me, but it was just such a stupid thing to do for someone that's handling a spitting cobra, okay? It was so dumb. Anyway, we need to just edit that part out of the whole podcast because that's so stupid. All right, so So that's a little bit. So anyway, so yeah, if it does get into your eye, then yes, it can permanently or temporarily blind you. I had somebody come to our facility one time with the state to do an inspection, and I had a Western diamondback rattlesnake. And this Western diamondback was in an aquarium with a screen lid on it at the time. And this person went over there and wanted to hear it rattle. So he leaned over the screen and he blew on the snake through the screen. I said, whoa, I don't do that. And, he's like, it's fine. He did it again, and the snake struck and hit the screen. Of course, he can't bite him because the screen's there, but he hit the screen, and venom sprayed through the screen, hit him in the face, and he says it went into his eyes. He kind of freaked out a little bit, ran to the sink, and it was pretty funny to me, not to him. It was pretty. Anyway, he had to, wash his. He was fine, didn't have any problems with it. But anyway, I'm like, you don't do that, because even it doesn't have to be a spitting cobra to get venom in your eye. And would that venom have affected him? I would imagine it would have. Even though it's a different type of venom than a cobra has, really, I would still imagine it would have greatly affected him. So anyway, that was really, really crazy. Now, going into a couple more things, we'll be wrapping this up here in just a minute. So talked about the hybrid compound made from the cobra venom that glows basically like a Christmas tree. That's so cool. I mean, it's so amazing they can do that. Then there's the South American rattlesnake. We talked about that. It has something that inhibits the growth of hepatitis C. And then here's one more that I think is really cool. Often when I get on stage, I'll mention some of these venoms and I'll talk about some of this stuff. And I often would mention the Copperhead. Now, Copperheads have since been reclassified. If you ask me, a few years ago how many Copperheads there are, I would have said 5, maybe. What were all 5 Copperheads? I don't remember them all. The Southern, the Northern, the Transpicos, the Broadband, and what's the other one? Somebody help me. I don't remember. Anyway, they've reclassified these. And so now in Georgia, we don't have the Northern and Southern Copperhead. It's just known as the Eastern Copperhead. But I would tell them the Southern Copperhead has something in its venom called contortristatin. And this was found by a researcher, and he found out that when you take contortristatin from the venom of the Southern Copperhead, that in lab tests, it shows a 70% reduction in breast cancer tumors in women. 70% reduction, which is amazing. So I was telling this story on stage. I told the story 100 times, about how wonderful Copperheads are, because they can, they're using this or trying to get to where they can use this to one day treat breast cancer. And I had a guy come up to me after the show. He's like, hey, I just want to talk to you about that information. And I work with venoms, and I knew who this guy was, and he didn't do anything with venoms that was worthy of even talking about. But he came up and he said, you're talking about Copperhead venom helps with cancer, breast cancer. At one time, we thought that was going to be the case, and then we found out that it doesn't do that. So you need to take that part out of your show because it doesn't help. It doesn't do anything. And I'm like, well, where'd you get your information? And he couldn't tell me. So I started trying to figure out, where did I get this information? Am I giving false information in my show? I don't want to do that. So I started researching and finding out about contortristatin. And does it really help reduce breast cancer tumors in women by 70%? And I found out who the scientist was, who the researcher was, the lead researcher on this project. And I found out the facility he worked in, I believe it was in California. And I called him. And I said, hey, I'm from Georgia, and I'm do this show on stage, and I talk about venoms, and I talk about this. I mentioned the research you've done with the Copperhead and contortristatin and blah, blah, blah. And I was told by somebody that I'm giving wrong information. I wanted to hear it from you. Can you call me back? And he did not call me back for about a month. But he did call me back. And I forgot I called him by this point. He called me back and he said, yeah, how can I help you? And I said, well, let me tell you what I do. I get on stage, I talk about snakes, blah, blah, blah. And I want to tell you word for word what I say. And then I want you to tell me if anything I say is inaccurate. He said, okay. So I said exactly what I said about copperheads. Copperheads have a component of venom called contortristatin. It's been shown in lab tests to reduce breast cancer tumors in women by up to 70%. He said, well, yes and no. I said, okay. What have I messed up on? He said, you didn't mess up on nothing, but you need to add to it. I said, okay, what do I add to it? He said, well, everything you said is correct. Contortristatin we found from the copperhead that lives in Georgia in the southeastern U.S. Can reduce breast cancer tumors in women by 70% in the lab tests that we're doing. He said, however, we have also found that if we take contortristatin from the copperhead, we can use that to then make vicrostatin. I said, are you serious? You can make vicrostatin? He said, we sure can. I said, what is vicrostatin? How do you spell that? And he said, well, vicrostatin reduces ovarian cancer and prostate cancer by 90%. So that's 3 different cancers from one snake. And I was just blown away. I just think that's absolutely amazing. And we got so many people out here who say, only good snakes, dead snake. You know, they don't like any snakes because they don't want to admit that their fear of snakes stems from a lack of knowledge. So instead of saying that, hey, I lack knowledge about this, so I'm afraid of it, they're not going to say that. Instead, they want to make the snake out to be evil. You know, that's much more fun to do. Make it, you know, nothing wrong with me. It's the snake. Something's wrong with the snake, not me, you know. And so one thing that I've mentioned before in a couple of my shows in regards to that is something I think is pretty cool. Because I have all these people come up to me because a lot of this, one day we're going to do an episode about snakes in the Bible. We'll have to do that one day. I'm not going to get all deep into that, but I do want to mention this one thing because I think this is really cool. I've had to take my snakes over the years to several different churches, okay? And no, I don't mean like a snake handling church service. That's not what I'm talking about, not that. But I'll have a pastor call me and say, hey, I'm going to be preaching, you know, about, you know, whatever, you know, sin or whatever, or this or that. And I just want a visual representation of this or that. Because can you bring a snake in? And they're not always trying to make the snake look like it's evil or the devil. That's not even what they're doing. They're just trying to incorporate, you know, venom. Sometimes, like I had one pastor one time trying to talk about how venom and sin are alike, you know, and I thought that was kind of cool how he did that. And so I started researching more about that. And there's something I found out that I heard that was so cool. I never heard this before. It was absolutely amazing because I have so many people that come up to me and they'll say, hey, you know, why do you like snakes? I'm like, because they're amazing animals. Yeah, but don't you know, hadn't you read your Bible? Don't you know the Lord cursed the serpent, you know, all this stuff. I'm like, oh God. Because if I ever say to somebody, you don't want to just kill these snakes because you don't understand them. You know, God created these things. As soon as I say God created it, they're going to say, yep, he did, and he cursed it too, didn't he? I'm like, yeah, you're right. He did curse the serpent. However, after he cursed the serpent, what did he curse? What else did he curse? Adam and Eve. Should we kill all the people too? Of course not. You know, that's not what we should do. But, you know, the Bible tells me it was Satan who chose to use a serpent, not God. And I also understand that whatever Satan means for evil, God can use for good. And I think that's exactly what he's been doing through giving men wisdom and knowledge to utilize venoms to save lives. That's exactly what he's been doing. And it goes even further than that. You know, I think even when Satan chooses something, when Satan in the Bible chooses something to represent evil, God didn't choose the serpent to represent evil. I mean, when you go and listen to what God says about snakes in the Bible, there's not a lot of bad things God's saying about snakes in the Bible. He even tells us to be as shrewd, as wise and shrewd as serpents, you know. But one thing, the thing I thought was so cool was this. Antivenom, and I'm going to make this as simple as I possibly can because that's how I understand it. Antivenom, basically what they would do is they would take venom from a snake and they would inject it in a very small amount into a horse, okay? And then over time, the horse, as it has enough venom injected into it where it's not going to kill the horse, you know, it starts to build up antibodies to fight against those properties in the venom. And when the horse builds up enough antibodies to fight against this, you know, some of the blood of the horse is drawn off, the white blood cells are separated, and through all the scientific stuff they do, they basically manufacture antivenom. And the antivenom that they used from the horse serum to do this is called Wyeth antivenom. And they would basically, you get bit by a snake, okay? And they take this specific antivenom that's for that snake or whatever it is, and they give you the antivenom, and then that antivenom helps stop the progression of the damage this venom is causing. Here's the problem with that. The problem was people started having severe allergic reactions to the antivenom, because they didn't realize how many people were allergic to horses. And so because of the severe allergic reactions, a lot of physicians were getting to where they said, you know, it almost seems like the cure is worse than the disease. The antivenom is causing more problems than the venom does. So when somebody would come in with a copperhead bite, like, well, you know, copperhead bites are bad, but they're not deadly. I'd rather you not give this dangerous antivenom. We're not going to give that. That stuff's so dangerous. You can have an allergic reaction and die. So we're not going to give that. We're just going to ride this out, and we're going to just treat the symptoms of it and hope this passes, you know, hope you don't lose your hand, you know, your finger or whatever. So over time, you know, we would equate venom from the snake. These pastors I would take a snake into, they would equate venom from the snake almost to like sin, you know, sin in your life. Just like a snake bites you, you get venom in you. You know, Satan tempts you and you get sin into your life. Because Genesis, I don't know if this is the right chapter and verse, I'm going off memory. I think it's Genesis 3:5. I'm probably wrong about that. It talks about God in the Bible is talking to Satan about man, okay? And this is what God says to Satan in Genesis 3:5. I think that's where it is. Basically says that he, meaning man, will strike your head and you will strike his heel. Okay, so basically, man will step on the snake, and the snake will bite him. So what happens? What has to happen first? In that verse, what has to happen first is the man has to take a step toward the snake in order to get bit. All right, you're not just going to be standing over here minding your own business. The snake over here minding his business, 30 feet away, and the snake, oh, look at that guy over there. Let me run over here and bite him. That's not happening. Or in order for you to get bit, you're going to have to put a part of your body close to that snake. You have to take a step toward the snake. You have to take a step toward sin. You're not just going to be out here living your life and the devil just make you sin. Now, the devil may make it easy for you to sin. Just like it may be easy for you to get bit by a snake. You may have a snake living in your yard right at your front steps, and you may easily get out there and step on him because he's right where you normally walk. And Satan may easily try to put things in your path to make sin easy for you. You know, he may put things in your life to tempt you to where it's easy for you to take the step. But in order for you to sin, you have to take the step to do that, okay? And so what I think is so cool about this is just like Satan can, you know, when Satan in the Bible, he takes the snake and tries to make it evil, God can take something Satan meant for evil and show us himself in that. How does he do that? Let's get back to the antivenom. So they found out this horse serum, this Wyeth antivenom, people were having these allergic reactions from it, right? So another scientist found out there was a different farm animal that you could use its blood to stop the effects of venom. And they equate that just like to Jesus. You know, when you sin and you ask Jesus to forgive you your sin, it's his blood that washes us clean, okay? So the farm animal they used to replace the horse serum was the sheep, the lamb, the lamb's blood. They inject these venoms into the lamb, into the sheep, and they draw up this lamb's blood, and that's what counteracts venom today in 2024. It's called crofab. It's made from the blood of sheep, of lambs. And so just like Satan wants to use everything to, cause destruction, God can use those same things to show his glory and the things he's done for us, So anyway, there's a lot of ways that you can look at snakes, a lot of ways you can look at venom, and I just barely scratched the surface on some of this stuff tonight. If you go and start just researching venom, it'll just make your mind spin as to how much we know about it versus how much we don't know about it. And that's what I try to tell people is, if you're one of these people who are just so against venomous snakes, and some people almost feel like they're doing a disservice to their fellow man if they see a snake and don't kill it. And that's so sad that people feel that way, because as our technology increases, I mean, think about your smartphone. Who had a smartphone in the year 2000 or 2005? Nobody. They weren't invented yet. What was it? 2006, 2007, somewhere in there before the first smartphone came out. And now you can't leave your house. If you go to work and leave your phone at home, you have to call in sick or go back home and get it and go to work late. You got to have your phone. At least most people do, right? Most people can't live without that technology. As our technology increases 10 years from now, 30 years from now, to a level that we cannot even comprehend at this time in our life, at that point, we may be able to use these venoms to cure, there's no telling what. But some of these snakes, by that point, may not be here. Because in the early 2020s, the mid-2020s, we taught our kids, the only good snake's a dead snake. So just because you don't understand or agree with a certain part of nature does not give us the God-given responsibility to just destroy it. So I say, leave these things alone. And if you do that, they will gladly do the same exact thing for us. Now, we have covered quite a few things. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. This has been episode number 8 of the SnakesAreUsTV podcast, talking about venom. And there's been a lot of people joining us. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. I will be back next week for episode number 9. What are we talking about next week? Next week is going to be pretty cool. You know what we're talking about? I have no idea. I don't know what next week's topic is going to be. We will figure that out. But I think it'll be pretty cool. So come back and join us next week for episode 9. Again, my name is Jason Clark, and I really appreciate all of y'all being here, everybody joining us for the live chat. If you're listening to somewhere else, you can always go watch it on YouTube and see things that are visually we're talking about. Otherwise, thank y'all for coming. Have a great night. And remember one thing, Jesus loves you, and so do I.